Stan Lee passed away yesterday. Frick, I haven't gotten emotional about this, but for some reason now that I'm like making a video, I'm feeling emotional. What's going on? I've been talking about this since yesterday, and like now I'm like, dude, okay. I wanted to talk about this because, for one, I don't get emotional about like celebrities and stuff. I don't think it's because their lives don't matter or anything, but it's just kind of hard for me to like connect with somebody that I've never met before. I didn't think this would be my first video back into the internet sphere because I was planning on these other art-related videos, but then this happened, and I really want to talk about this. So I think it's kind of fitting because it's the end of his era and the beginning of me starting on something new. Not saying that this is about me, but it's just very interesting that these things kind of happen at the same time. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko both passed away this year, and I know that Steve Ditko isn't as well of a known name, but in the comics world, he's known for creating characters like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and illustrating some really iconic comics. And Stan Lee, of course, wrote a lot of amazing characters and stories, and Stan Lee's passing ended the era, that generation of like Marvel founding fathers like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and Joe Simon. I don't know, it's like we all knew it was gonna happen, right? You know, especially after his wife passed last year. And I don't want to sound overly sentimental or like I'm really glorifying him as a person, because he was just a person and I never knew him. Stan Lee helped change the perception of comics, whether or not they were just for kids or whether or not they were just stupid little stories. He was passionate about putting in large vocab words in there that you have to like Google. Like still to this day, like you'll read some old comics and be like, what the heck is that word? Challenging the box that this medium was put in, redefining it, of course, along with people like Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko that were such like artistic visionaries. I really want to stress that they were such a huge part of this, and because Stan Lee stayed in the limelight, lived for so long, we know him very well. But there's this great video that Rotten Tomatoes posted on their Instagram, it might be on their YouTube as well, where he talks about that, how it's not just like this one man who created all these marvels, but how it's all like a creative team. What that says about creativity and creating with other people and how we fuel each other. And there's a lot of beauty about that, even though there are a lot of complicated aspects of his story with these creators, and they didn't have flawless relationships at all. And you know, if you look into the history, there's some stuff that is complicated. It doesn't paint anyone as a perfect person, but even in that, he did still create these characters like Spider-Man and the X-Men, who for me, like, I watched the 90s cartoons of them growing up, and from an artistic perspective, from a storytelling perspective, from just a perspective of things that like touched my heart, I guess. It's like, frick, oh my gosh, yo. I really didn't think I was gonna cry, shoot. Right now I'm studying illustration to create graphic novels one day and tell stories that challenge and engage people. But I guess I'm really realizing how much the fact that he had this kind of revolutionary vision on how to engage people and how to tell interesting stories and challenge people through this medium that wasn't considered anything influential was belittled. I always admired him as a creative, but like, I guess I'm now just realizing how much it actually is kind of a personal thing. Creating and illustrating stories that will impact and challenge people, I keep using the same words, but those are just the best words I can use, is such a huge goal of mine. The fact that this is kind of the official end to that generation almost makes me feel like the door has been open for me to do something really different and really influential, and that's kind of setting the bar really high. Then being able to witness things that they created that weren't seen as a big deal, weren't really appreciated a ton initially, become phenomenons that people saw greatness in, and to the extent where people wanted to make their own versions of it and like spread it out into the world, and people are like clamoring to engage with it. The fact that the little creative seeds you can set really impact people, like 80 years later. Like, I don't necessarily want to create graphic novels so that one day people turn them into great movies or whatever. Like, that would be like neat, but that's definitely not like my sole purpose, my end goal. And I'm sure that that's not what they were thinking about either. But just the idea that having an idea, having a vision, having a passion, and going for those things, even when people think that they don't make sense or they wouldn't work, how they can turn into something great that impacts people in such an insane ripple and generations. It's crazy. I used to be embarrassed because I was just a comic book writer while other people were building bridges or going on to medical careers, and then I began to realize entertainment is one of the most important things in people's lives. Without it, they might go off the deep end. I feel that if you're able to entertain people, you're doing a good thing. I think that's such a great quote because, like, as artists, it's so easy to, like, compare what we do. Like, oh, we just, like, draw things or paint things or create music or take photos or whatever. That's not going to change the world. It's like you see other people and they're going out and they're doing things that seem more significant. But a world without art doesn't really have a soul, you know? Like,